We've come back to Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary in Washington County, where the two young brown bears are growing like little bear cubs. And we'll learn more about them later in the show. But first, Tom Newbauer fishes for trout and salmon on Lake Michigan with Dumper Dan's Sport Fishing Charters of Sheboygan and Bill Lechner, the high bidder for this trip at last year's great TV auction. And then we'll talk with former TV host Randy Goodden about the early days of outdoor television in Wisconsin, and Deb Wolniak visits Stella Gardens Organic CSA at Michael Field's Agricultural Institute in East Troy. I'm Dan Small, and it's time once again for Outdoor Wisconsin.
Summer to fall, winter to spring, from Green Bay to where the St. Croix sings, from Catamaran to Superior Shore. Outdoor Wisconsin, outdoor Wisconsin.
Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary relies on support from the public to run its programs, and so does Milwaukee Public Television. Every year, MPTV holds the Great TV Auction, where you can bid on everything from art to fishing trips, like a trip with Dumper Dan Sport Fishing Charters of Sheboygan. Last summer, Tom Newbauer joined auction high bidder Bill Lechner and his guests aboard Dumper Dan's boat number 3 for an outing with Captain Matt Thayer.
Every year, Dumper Dan Charters graciously donates a trip to our Outdoor Wisconsin banquet. And this year's high bidder is Bill Lechner. And Bill, we want to thank you for that donation to Outdoor Wisconsin. We appreciate it.
It's for a great cause.
And you brought along this motley crew of Greg, Bob, and Gary. Did I get that right?
Yep.
I got it right. How about that? And a newcomer, a real newbie to Wisconsin and the sport of Lake Michigan salmon and trout fishing is Gary here. Greg here.
That's me, first time.
Yeah. Where are you from?
Georgia, Atlanta.
You're from Atlanta, Georgia, and so the first time out here, I hope we put a lot of fish in a boat, and I hope your arms get sore.
I hope so too. I'm looking forward to it.
And the guy who's guiding us to all this fish today is Captain Matt and his first mate, Jake. Those guys, well, they're up in the front of the boat. They're taking us out of
They're doing what they're supposed to do.
Taking us out of the harbor here, and we're going to run about 10 miles up, and we're going to troll with the wind because that's the calmest and best, they said. Because it's a little breezy today.
Yep.
It is. All right, I can't wait for the fish action to start.
Sounds good.
Yep. That speed is perfect. Then both legs right against the back. There you go.
Well, the guy from Georgia's got the first one on. Don't you lose it!
Probably a lot of salmon fishing experience coming from Georgia. I'm thinking veteran. He's doing good so far.
Beginner's luck.
There's a fish back there. If he starts head shaking and pulling real hard, I want you to stop cranking and just hold on and wait him out. We lose a lot of fish by over pulling. You know, we don't know how well this fish is hooked, whether he's hooked in the corner of the mouth where we want or whether he's hooked just lightly by the edge of his lip. So when you feel that pressure start to build, you want to kind of slow down and stop. If he starts thrashing, hold that rod steady, and if he starts coming with us easy or swimming at the boat, I want you to really keep up with him, yep? That rod tip is your indicator.
Oh, yeah.
And you're gonna stay right against the back right here. Jake's got the net out and ready. As this fish comes up the back, I'm gonna tell you when. You're gonna slowly raise that rod up. That'll keep the fish's head up and slide it right up and into the net, okay? Fine, it looks like we got a nice lake trout. Okay, now raise up the rod slow right over Jake's head. Up, 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 up. There we go.
All right.
Nice one. Stop
Hey.
cranking. Nice lake trout. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't appear like he was getting away.
Yeah.
Right. This first one, Bill.
It's still taking line out.
Looks like a nice one. That one hasn't quit running yet. You want the good news or the bad news? The good news is you have a nice fish on there. The bad news is past that board, you have another 270 feet of line.
That's brutal.
Intermittently, he's still making short runs.
That might be a big king.
I'm gonna have
Those 12 to 15 pound kings will sometimes fight harder than like a 20 pounder or 25 pounder. It seems like they kind of zip back and forth a lot and they just pull out a lot of drag. So you never know with a fish like this, you know. Earlier today, a big coho was caught out here, a 15 pounder. So, but this year they're getting a lot of big kings this year. So I'm hoping that's what this is.
A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Okay, now swing the rod around and then up into the air. Beautiful. Keep cranking now. Nice and slow, take your time, take your time. A little further back.
That's it.
That's plenty far
I
back.
got you.
And then very slowly walk to the back and keep cranking as you come though. Want to keep pressure on them. There you go, right against the cushion then.
Keep going, Gary. You can get it.
I don't know if you guys noticed, we're on our third different wind direction for the day now. Now the
Yeah, I
breeze is
know.
coming out of the northeast.
Yeah.
The closer this fish gets, the more patient you want to be, alrighty? Don't want to lose him behind the boat here.
Coming in like a giant web spinner.
Just like that, keep winding, keep winding, keep winding, keep winding, keep winding. Now raise that rod up high in the air. Up, 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 and over Jake's head.
All right.
Beautiful.
Well, we give you a hand too. That was pretty darn nice.
Nice king.
That away. Good for you. Excellent. And good table fare as well, right?
Hold it up one more time.
Pictures.
Yeah, you guys can see right here, king salmon typically have an adipose fin. It's a fatty fin that is right between the dorsal and the tail. You can tell that this fish is stocked. There's been a lot of conversation the last couple years about how many fish in this lake are naturally reproduced versus stocked. This one's obviously stocked. Now, another couple years, every king salmon that's put in the lake that's stocked will have an adipose clip and what's called a coated wire tag in the nose, but it's only in its second year, and we need to wait a full 4 years, a full generation time for these kings to all be that way. So this is a stocked one.
Where's your diver at?
Yours was at 131, right, Jake?
Yeah.
Okay. Mine's at 141 now.
Here comes the
Crank, 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 crank. Oh, he's on there. Ooh, he's coming at us all of a sudden. Oh, he fell off. Keep cranking. Yep, walk all the way back to the chair there. Keep cranking, keep cranking, keep cranking. Yep.
Shaker.
Yeah, he's not a monster. Get him in the boat. He ain't a monster.
I thought he was off for a minute there.
Well, he'll be a griller. I got this.
We can get the camera out, Bob, and get you some really good shots of this beast.
I don't know if this will expand out so yeah, you can get the whole fish in, but we'll try.
I don't know. We have to try to get the whole fish in.
Look at this one. It's got an adipose fin. It's less than 2 years old, so for sure this fish is a natural reproducer, unless there was a freak accident at the hatchery and it
Hey, it
didn't
beats
get
the other
clipped.
thing we do.
Work. Boy, we've had a really good day out on Dumper Dan's Charter with Captain Matt, first mate Jake, and Phil. I want to thank you again for buying this trip, and guys, it's been fun fishing with you. Even though he caught the little one.
Biggest guy catches little fish.
But that's all right. Next time, you catch the big one. How's that?
It's all about having fun.
And what did you think from Georgia, first time out here on Lake Michigan?
I love it. It was a great time.
Yeah. Got cold though, didn't it?
It cool off in the last half hour.
Yeah. It got chilly, yeah. All right. Well,
All right.
until next time on Lake Michigan.
All right. See you next year.
Yeah, hopefully.
There you go. Thanks again.
Brian Cardarella of Trever sent us this early morning photo of Canada geese on Camp Lake in Kenosha County. To email us a photo of your favorite Wisconsin scene, log on to mptv.org/outdoorwisconsin. Then click on Contact Us on the left side of your screen. Or you can post your photo on our Facebook page at Outdoor Wisconsin. Be sure to include your name, where you live, and the county where your photograph was taken. Tom Newbauer has been Outdoor Wisconsin's fishing educator since the show premiered in 1984, but Tom's TV experience predates the show by several years. He was a guest on one of the first outdoor shows in Wisconsin, hosted by Randy Goodden, and I recently had a chance to visit with Randy at Best Place at the Old Pabst Brewery in Milwaukee, and we talked about the early days of outdoor television. Outdoor Wisconsin first went on the air in November of 1984, and this was our 30th anniversary season. But there's a TV show that actually predated Outdoor Wisconsin, here in Wisconsin, and the host of that show is joining us today. His name is Randy Goodden. Now, Randy, how did you get started, and why did you get started doing outdoor
Well, let me
TV?
first thank you for asking me to come on your show and have this opportunity to talk about this. I was a very avid hunter and fisherman back in the 70s and stuff, and not only did I like hunting and fishing, but I also wanted to watch it on television, and there weren't any shows on TV. And in Wisconsin, I think that the American Sportsman had quit airing around 74 or 76. And so I decided I was going to film some shows myself and see how it went. So I did my very first show in 1979. But I took that into the NBC affiliate in Milwaukee and showed it to them and to see if they'd be interested in airing it. And the program director looked at it and brought in the sales and marketing guy, and they were both watching it, and they really enjoyed the show. And so they put it on a Saturday afternoon in the fall, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, opposite Wide World of Sports. So the competition was really tough. And I found out on Monday that this was a half-hour show, but in the first 45 minutes, they had received over 60 phone calls of people who watched this and really liked it and wanted to know if there was going to be more. And he said they never had such a response to a show that aired on a weekend previously ever. So that's how it all started.
On your show, you had some of the same guests that we've had on our show.
You know, when I was first doing this, I had to find people. And of course, I was getting all of the outdoor magazines, and so I was reading about who the writers were. And so I was contacting, finding people to be on the show, to come and hunt and fish with me. And some of the shows were just like this, were a stage show, a setting, a talk show. But most all of them were out in the field and stuff. And so I was always looking for people to bring on the show. And so there were a lot of writers, gun dog editors, fishing writers, or champion fishermen that did bass championships. And so I would find these people, contact them, ask them if they'd be interested in doing the shows with me. And of course they all were. And so I could bring them to light. I mean, most all of these people, this was the first time they had ever been on television because there was no show. And so prior to this, and so I could bring them out of print and bring them right on the screen and let them actually do what they do best.
One of your early guests is a good friend of ours, Dave Duffy, the dog writer.
Dave was a real good person to have on the show, and of course he had been with Outdoor Life magazine for almost 20 years. Bringing Dave on the show I thought was a real thrill because he's known nationally and he's in Wisconsin, and so that was all the better. And we did a couple of really good pointing and flushing breed shows.
Well, he's a real pro, and he was fun to work with when we were out with him too. Randy, one of the guests you had on your show was a favorite of ours, the late Jack Remus, who ran the Leader charter boat here in Milwaukee. How did you connect with Jack?
I wanted to do a Lake Michigan show because the salmon and the coho populations were really growing. It was a very exciting show to be able to do if I could pull it off. Jack was phenomenal. Jack Remus was one of a kind. He not only assured you that if you did a show with him, you would probably limit out, as we always did, but he was a real character, and that helped make the show too. Doing shows with him was very entertaining and a lot of fun. We did really have a good time and a lot of fun, and most importantly, they were always action-packed shows. So we could really put a good show together. I didn't want to always be going out on Lake Michigan, too. I mean, we wanted to do a lot of the inland fishing and for different types of fish, but I really looked forward to filming shows with Jack.
And of course, one of your guests is a fellow who's been on Outdoor Wisconsin since the very beginning, Tom Newbauer. Now, you got Tom started in TV, didn't you?
I did. I read about Tom winning a Wisconsin bass fishing championship, and so that's when I contacted him and asked him if he'd like to come on the show. and do some bass fishing with me. And he did quite a number of shows.
Well, I think you polished Tom because he's quite a storyteller, and folks really like him.
You know, as you're seeking out people to bring on, nowadays you can get people because you may have seen them on television doing things, but I couldn't do that because there wasn't anybody on television.
Randy, how have outdoor TV shows changed in the 30 years since yours was on the air?
Well, in the beginning, a lot of shows were a lot more amateur. The earlier shows were more set-up shows, and I knew that. And so I would be entertained by watching them because I not only heard what they were doing, but I could detect it in watching the shows that they were doing things like this, setting up and hooking fish and having guys in the water and acting, you know, like they don't know that they already have a fish on, and then all of a sudden pulling the rod, and oh my God, I got a fish on, and reeling the thing in, which, you know, you knew that they had the thing on all the while. But so it'd be entertaining from that perspective, and you could relate to that, to the problems of having to do that.
What advice have you got, if any, for someone who might want to start an outdoor show today?
You need to come up with an angle. You need to be a good personality yourself. You need to be somebody that they want to watch and is entertaining as well as educational and informative. Number one, you have to think about what you're going to do because the competition was out there. There was no competition for me, so that made it a lot easier. It is challenging, and so you'd have to think about what you were going to do to make it different, and you know how good of a personality you are. That people would want to watch you.
Well, Randy, thanks so much for taking time to share some of the history and some of the memories of the early outdoor TV shows.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me, and it was a great opportunity for me to be able to tell some of the history of this.
We ought to go fishing together sometime.
We should do that.
It's almost time to plant the garden here at Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary, and Stella Gardens at Michael Fields Agricultural Institute is run as a community-supported agriculture organic garden. And last summer, at the height of the growing season, Deb Wolniak visited Stella Gardens and talked with several interns about their experiences there and their future plans.
Same size, and we've got quite a lot, so however many you think we'll sell at Farmers Market and then the cooler this weekend until Monday.
I just graduated from a master's degree in engineering last year, and I decided that I wanted to do something else and get my hands dirty.
Yeah, I don't want the cooler to run
Agriculture is really a good mix with energy, water management, and also healthy food issues. So I came here all the way from France to this internship here, working in the garden and learn how to farm. My grandfather and my grandmother on my mother's side were farmers. So it comes back really long time ago. We had like 6 in the coolers.
This is a very hands-on, small scale, and it's really meant to just introduce students or anyone who's interested in farming to the very bare basics of it. We have a 7-month-long internship, and they all came from mid-March to early April and started the program. At that point, we began in the greenhouses, sowing seeds for the season, and then shaping the beds.
Getting the ground ready is definitely the hardest part. Making beds is like the most physically strenuous, but I think it's the most important part. If you want your vegetables to have like a nice place to live in, soil health is a big thing in terms of like nutrient-dense vegetables.
The thing that's shocking to me is how big the vegetables are. What are you doing that's so special?
Well, they get a lot of water. Water is key. We have an irrigation system set up that allows us to keep on top of the irrigation. And we also have really great soil. We've been working on our soil here for 15 to 20 years, adding in organic matter. We don't use herbicides or pesticides. We use compost that we create here on site.
I guess like my personal philosophy on soil, and the reason I really appreciate compost is that I feel like if you take care of the soil will reciprocate and take care of you. I definitely want to stay involved in food growing. That's definitely a part of my future. maybe veer it a little bit towards the social justice end and make food available to like all individuals, all communities.
Now we never know where come from our vegetables and how food. So I really want to produce my own food and like try to cook my own vegetables and share it with other people. One of the real benefit here is just we harvested together some basil, tomatoes and stuff. So I just made a salad. I would be really pleased to work in a place where I can host families or strangers and just take care of them, make them food, and produce my own vegetables in a little garden behind with trees and fruit trees also.
Wow, I think I'm living my future. One of the things that is important for me to let people know, to remind them, is to definitely make it out to visit the farms where if they're a member of like CSA, see where like your money is going and what it's supporting and what type of agriculture it's supporting, so that you definitely have a better connection to the place, the land, and where your food is coming from.
Last week, we had a chance to meet Lewis and Clark, two Syrian brown bears who found a new home here at Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary in Washington County. And I'm here with Shalom manager Dave Fechter again. And Dave, this is their future home, right?
Yep, this is where we're planning on going with it. We'd like to go with at least a 2.5 up to 5 acres. It has a nice little pond here that's 18 feet deep. And brown bears, they love to play in the water. So they're going to have everything they need here to be a bear.
When they're here in their exhibit, what will people see?
Well, they'll be able to see them interact with each other and also how they interact with nature.
And what will you feed them at that point?
Anything that we can get. Bear is one of the only animals in the world that will eat everything. And so they're an omnivore, but they'll eat deer meat, beef meat, bacon, donuts, obviously everybody knows that, fish, whatever we can get for them. The last time you saw the bears, they weighed about 15 pounds. And even a 15-pound bear is really something to hang on to. Pure muscle. So now they weigh about 25 pounds, and it's an animal that definitely has to be respected.
Now you chose brown bears. They're rarer than black bears. Aren't black bears more accessible? Why did you go with brown bears?
Well, we did a lot of research on them for the last 5 years, and we found out, talking to other people that have bears, that the black bear is actually harder to take care of. They're more aggressive.
Lewis and Clark, you can tell them apart by their markings, can't you?
Right. Yeah. Clark actually has a little longer white stripe on his back, and so and he's got a little browner face, and he's got a little bigger head. They have little things like that, but they also have different personalities. And Lewis is a little bit more of an aggressive type of bear. So.
Okay, so is he likely to be the dominant bear when they grow up?
It's hard telling. At first he was, but Clark is actually getting bigger, and so the fact that he's bigger, he's actually it goes back and forth, but we'll find out in the long run, maybe a year or so.
Now they wrestle and then they run off. Describe their play and what are they doing?
Okay. Well, they're not trying to hurt one another, but they're learning their hunting and survival skills. And in the wild, wrestling is, they may be fighting over a female, and so it's just ways they build their muscles and learn how to survive.
Will they hibernate in the winter?
They will. If you keep feeding them, they actually will not hibernate, but usually what other zookeepers do is they stop feeding them for a few days, and then they actually go into hibernation.
So you'll have some kind of a cave here?
They'll have a den here, yep.
Yeah.
They were thinking on the other side over here.
All right. Great. I can't wait to see them when they grow up.
Yeah, me too. It's a lot of bear, I'll tell you.
Times 2.
Yeah.
Can you make any of their sounds?
Well, the only sound that I do make of the bear is when we first got them, they made a little chuckly sound. It kind of sounds like this. And that's the sound that the mother would make, and they'll make back to her. And so when they're happy, they actually make that sound to us.
Do you do it back at them?
Yep. In the beginning, I did. Now they're getting to the point where they're big enough that I really don't want them up by me. When you make the chuckly sound, they're going to come up by your face, because when they're little, they have very poor eyesight, so they need to get close to you to see who you are. And so when I would make that sound, they would make that sound, and then they would climb up my chest and say, okay, you're the guy taking care of me. And so now they're big enough.
You don't want them in your face?
I don't want them in my face, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we have great respect for them.
To learn more about Lewis and Clark, the Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary, and this week's other features, visit mptv.org/outdoorwisconsin. You can also watch past programs on our website, and you can contact us there or on Facebook at Outdoor Wisconsin. Tell us what segments you'd like to see again, and we might feature them on an upcoming show. And you can help celebrate our 30th anniversary with your own Dan Small bobblehead. Order online at mptv.org. Just click on the store tab. I'm Dan Small here at Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary in Washington County. Join us again next time for Outdoor Wisconsin.
Feed yourself like a bear and the blackberry like a hawk. Perch and stare, outdoor Wisconsin. When the working life is way too much, you're in too deep, way out of touch. Lace up your boots, get out of town, walk in the wild and sit down and listen. Listen to the sounds of the critters of the night, to the wind and the leaves and the little river run. Coyote brother howling in the moonlight. Outdoor Wisconsin. Hike, fish, hunt, camp, sail, canoe. Ski, photograph, laugh, do what you want to. Stick your nose where the wild rose grows. Outdoor Wisconsin. Outdoor Wisconsin.